Hey folks, I'm Red Monster SC, and in today's video, we're going to cover mining in Pyro. Specifically, we're going to talk about ore distribution across the many planet and moon surfaces in the new star system, as well as all the deep space locations that are being added. We're also going to cover gemstone distribution for FPS and rock mining, and I also happen to uncover a few hidden secrets in the game files that I'm excited to talk to you about. Let's dive in. Before we get into the charts, I do want to add the disclaimer that this is all extracted from the tech preview game files, which are a very early build of the Pyro system that we're kind of getting that first glimpse of. This is going to be subject to change, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of these numbers change pretty drastically by the time the Pyro system actually gets into the live build. So starting off, we have our ore percentages by location on the different planets and moons within the Pyro system. You will notice I have from Pyro 1 all the way through Pyro 6. With the tech preview, we actually only have access to travel to Pyros 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, Pyro 4, 5, and 6 being much further out and not currently accessible. However, we do have the mineral distribution templates that are being used on those further planets. You will notice Pyro 5 is missing. It is a gas giant, and we've got a very interesting mix here. So the first three planets, Pyro 1, 2, and 3, they have a very similar composition. We see a lot of copper, some tungsten, and Pyro 3 actually has iron and titanium. No aluminum there, but between these first three, we do have pretty good concentrations of bexylite, and noticing Pyro 1 has a good amount of terranite as well. This is actually a couple of percentage points better than what we've seen anywhere in the Stanton system. So Pyro 1, maybe having a little bit better distribution. However, a lot higher risk being closer to Pyro's very volatile star. Now, as we travel further away from the star, we get beyond to Pyro 4 and the 6 natural moons of Pyro 5. Pyro 5 is actually absent from here because it is a gas giant like Crusader. It does not have a surface for any of these surface mineable deposits to land on. So what we can tell is that these are going to have very similar distributions. Our common elements are pretty well balanced between everything. We do see some variation in the tier 2s. That's really the main driver here between Pyro 4 and again all 6 of the natural moons of Pyro 5. They form a little subsystem there that I think is going to be interesting to go out and mine with. As many targets are going to be there, plenty of places to hide, get lost at, and potentially, we do see it. ADIR Pyro 5C has the best quantanium percentage chance by about a percentage compared to the others, and then bexylite being a moderately decent value there. Again, Pyro 4 with those moons all having very similar distributions. And then, of course, Pyro 6 Terminus having the best percentage for gold, looks like by a couple percentage points over the rest. Now, gold being the most dense, making it a little bit more difficult to mine. The other note here is that it is actually the only place that you can find quartz in the Pyro system, that having a pretty low density. So a quartz rock with a lot of gold, I think that would be a great combination. The other material there also being aluminum. So I would say of those choices, Pyro 1 right now seems to be the one I'm going to try and spend the most time mining at. Once we get access to it, I'd like to go out to Terminus and see how that quartz with the gold distribution plays into each other. Now, as we get into the deep space locations, this chart's going to need a little bit more explanation because it doesn't show all of the named asteroid clusters or the LaGrange points. Instead, it's got the templates that those asteroid fields are going to use. There are a total of 20 named asteroid clusters that I could find in the Pyro star map, as well as having 25 separate LaGrange points that in general will each have their own unique asteroid field. Now, those asteroid fields are going to pick from one of a couple of templates in order to manage those rock distributions, and that's not tied to the game files. That requires some direct observation, and as I get those mapped in, I'll make sure to update and include those with the named asteroid locations. What we see is kind of 4 unique asteroid field templates, 2 of them being on the cool side and 2 of them being on the warm side. I suspect that the warm asteroids are going to be the ones that are closest to the star, where the cool ones are those further out. And we do also see that we have the Akiro cluster with its own unique distribution. And the deep space asteroids, this template is actually mostly a carbon copy of the Akiro cluster, with the exception of a few of those asteroid types that are not present. Overall, the balancing looks pretty even between the different mineral types and where you're going to be able to find them in the asteroid fields, with the warmer asteroids having a little bit more of those high density materials, but we'll need to keep an eye out on that as we get those lined up and aligned to their named asteroid clusters and LaGrange points. Moving on to the gem distribution by location. For our planetary surfaces, you'll notice most of the rock deposits, there's only going to be a single type of material on any planet, with the exception of Pyro 5b, which has a combination of aphrite and dolomine at about the same percentages. For the FPS deposits, every planet's going to have a mix, a pretty high mix of dolomine to start, and then a smaller percentage of aphrite. You will notice that Pyro 5D Pharaoh actually does not have any rock minables on it, as far as I could tell in the current game files. We'll need to verify that as we get a little bit more information. But Pyro 1, 2, and 3 that we have access to right now, we should see a combination of aphrite or dolomine. And then as we get further out in the Pyro 5 system with Pyro 4 and its moons, as well as Pyro 6, we will see some hadanite deposits as we get that far. Like and subscribe now if you're enjoying this video, and leave a comment below if you're seeing something unique with the mining in Pyro. Now this next part is what I'm most excited about. There are 4 new mineable materials within the game source files. We have Rixite, Sileron, Silicon, and Ice. Now, while they are in the game source files, and we know the mineable material properties for each, they are not actually implemented in the rock spawning recipes. It's akin to having chocolate chips in the pantry, but not having the recipe for chocolate chip cookies. We know they're there, we know what they could be used for, but we just can't cook with them yet. For Rixite and Sileron, I'm expecting these to be tier 1 materials because they each have a very high instability at 850 and 870. This is above what our current tier 1 materials are at, between 5 to 700, but below Quantanium, that is at 1,000. We do also see a very high resistance. Rixite being a resistance of 1, Sileron being a resistance of 0.6. Those are on par with our tier 1s and Quantanium. Our optimal window midpoint, that means that we're going to be much higher in the optimal charge window as that starts, as well as an explosion multiplier of 260, which is on par with Quantanium, very close to Terranite, so a lot of explosions potentially happening there. Next, we have Silicon. I expect Silicon to be in the tier 3s. It has a very low instability, a negative resistance, and of course a cluster factor of 0.9 that we only really see in Titanium and Quartz from the other tier 3s. And then finally Ice, which I'm actually really excited about. I'd love to go out and do some ice harvesting. But Ice has a 0 instability, a negative resistance factor, and a 0.7 cluster factor, which again, I don't see this being anywhere besides a tier 3 common. And I'm really excited to see some ice asteroids eventually making their way into the verse. So, as usual, I will have a folder where you can download both a dark mode and a light mode of my Pyro cheat sheets. I'm going to keep those separate from my main cheat sheets until we get into the live release, but I will include a link in the description below. That goes to my post where I also break down some of the exact same things I've talked about here, a couple of little tidbits explaining some of those charts. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on the Pyro system, the new refinery stations, and their updated grungy look, which I thought has been amazing. I'd love to see what you guys think, as well as what your overall feel is in the Pyro system. I think it's going to be a challenging area to mine. And I'd like to end with a quick plug for my merch store, shop.redmonstergaming.com. You can get in there, and I just released the new Occupy Pyro line of merch. We have stickers, we got a mug, and we have 2 different t-shirts, a dark mode and a light mode, featuring that Occupy Pyro logo I've designed here. Pretty slick stuff. Go on to shop.redmonstergaming.com, and the Occupy Pyro merch here. There is a 25% bonus code if you order between now and December 31st using the code Pyro or Bust, and you'll take 25% off anything in the Occupy Pyro line. So Thanks, and I'll see you out there.